Welcome, everyone, through all time and space to an all new episode of Weebs on the Weekends, a podcast where we break down the anime news highlights of the week and give a retrospective look at anime that premiered 10 years ago. On today's episode, we'll be covering the news from the second week of December 2020 and give our thoughts on what are our top 10 favorite anime of 2020. My name is Jay Johnson, I'm part time Weeb and full time English language sensei, and with me, as always, is my co host Sam Martinez, part time Weeb and full time automail mechanic. How are you doing today, Sam?
Kales McKinney Johnson. Kagi Tebi 8.
Wow, okay. I'm going to go right off the bat saying I've never heard this language. But yeah, how am I doing, Sam? Doing pretty well. It is Cyberpunk 2077 week, so I've been playing on my not my PlayStation 4, but my school's PlayStation 4.
Nice.
So, yeah, I know. So, not running like how high specs that you would want for like this kind of game that is very much a next gen. But it's funny that I'm playing it now because I've been waiting for this game for 8 years. I don't know if you remember, Sam, when E3. Oh, it would be 8 years ago next summer. So,
Oh yeah.
like in the wait period. But yeah, when that first trailer for 20 Cyberpunk 2077 came out by CD Projekt Red, and it kind of just blew the world away, and we were like, we're waiting for we're waiting for the next wave of video games to hit us, and it was like such a big promise, and it's like taken so long, and it's weird that it came out in 2020 where the world's again not in the best situation, but again like right at the end of the year where we just had the video game awards, which spoiler alert, The Last of Us Part 2 won Game of the Year.
I've heard all the memes about that, but go on.
Yeah, and it's just interesting that if they were able to keep their original deadline, that this would definitely be Game of the Year. But again, it's a situation of a lot of people prefer that, better than a flawed game coming out on time or better a delayed game that has little bugs to be fixed on day one shipping than like a completely broke game. Like, I guess the example nowadays would be like Anthem, which came out 2 years ago now, and people are still ragging on it as the example of this is how the game industry is kind of broke. But I've been very much enjoying my time playing it. I've only sunk about 12 hours into it. I'm very much
only 12.
Yeah, only 12 because I have one more week of school left, so I can't really dedicate my life to doing an RPG right now and a fully developed cyborg that works for the corporations, killing gangsters and drug dealers on the side. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well and preparing for the last week of school here, which is basically just exams week. But also, I have to get into letters of recommendations because the Japanese universities, basically, their application process ends at the start of next year because their school year cycle begins in April. So, very much a high profile school that I work at. So a lot of my kids are like, yeah, let me go to Japan. And I'm like, hey, maybe, yeah. But that means a lot of work for me technically to support my kids. But that's
Take me with you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a good. That's basically it. But given that,
No, that's good. How does it feel to have your kids ask you for a letter of recommendation? Because that means a lot, doesn't it? For them to come to you and like, if I think it says a lot of how they feel about their relationship with you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's more of a situation of using me because it sounds nice that a certain qualified teacher, foreign teacher coming from so many years of teaching in different cultures says, "Oh yeah, I'm a stand-up student." If he says so, then that definitely means I'm good to go to your university. But it does mean something for them to feel like, "Oh, I've only known you for this long," while their other teachers have known them for maybe 8, 10 years. Because like with the school system here, you're basically stuck with the same homeroom teacher year after year after year after year.
Oh,
So
seriously? They don't have you change homeroom teachers?
right, yeah. So the homeroom teachers level up as their students level up essentially, and that's why a lot of the teachers, when their students graduate, they just move on to a different school.
Okay.
So for me to come in, they're like, "Oh yeah, I prefer you over the teachers I've had for like 10 years." Is kind of like still like, yeah, I'm the cool teacher. But Sam, how about you? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I know I've told you off air that Talking about testing week, I've had some of my certification tests myself. I am already certified in prosthetics. I'm working on my certification for orthotics, and I had passed two of the three certification tests that I've had to do. So I've been very, very excited about that. It's a bit surreal. It feels like I'm almost done with school, even though I've been done with school for a couple years now. And, I mean, it's true that you're never going to stop learning, but it feels nice to not have to worry about a test, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's some it's a bit surreal because it was like after I had finished my test, I felt like I was able to peer into the minds of, say, characters such as Jinx from League of Legends or Harley Quinn, in the sense of when they don't have to care about like what society or what is required of them. You know, it was sort of like a freedom in that. And I, after getting the passing marks for those two tests, I felt a little bit of that glimpse of freedom, where it's like after this, like I don't have to care anymore. So I mean, I still have to care. I would have to uh, maintain so many continuing education credits, but it's not like I would have to take another test. You know, it's just it would be nice to have my time be my own again. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and I'm actually I actually might be playing video games sometime soon. Just thinking about that, it's going to be great.
Congratulations, Sam. Oh, did you get to finish the Final Fantasy VII remake yet?
Yes, I did finish that, or at least like the first part of it. And but by the first part, like the game when it came out, I was under the impression that it was going to be the full remake of the older game, but
Mhm.
it's actually just the first part. I think we might have talked about this before, because it's supposed to be a three-part HD remake that they're trying to do, and this game was just the first part of it. And I would say if they were upfront about it, if they were just upfront saying, "Hey, this is going to be the first part of a three-part series," I would be okay with it. But they played it up as though it was going to be the full game, so I was a little bit misled by that, and I kind of don't like, just to touch on the video game scene. Like, it seems like they are willing to put out part of a game and sell the rest of it for DLC, rather than give out a full complete game. For instance, the only game that did that recently was the fourth Crash Bandicoot game that came out. It was Crash Just in Time or something along those lines. Whereas it was a full game, there wasn't any need for DLC or anything else like that, and all of the costumes that you could get in the game, it was stuff that you would have to complete, whether or not it was collect all the fruits or break all the boxes, things like that. Not stuff that you could really pay for. It felt nice and reminiscent, harkening back to some of the older ways of video games. Whereas when you paid for a video game, you paid for a complete game. It wasn't, just like a parsed game.
Yeah, for sure.
I
So
kind
that
of miss those days.
to some anime news of the week because I got to talk about a video game adaptation for you, Sam. So you ready for the news?
Hey, segue! Sorry. Let's do it.
All right, cool. So as always, the time codes are going to be in the description. So we have our highlights of the week as well as our top favorite or top 10 best anime of the 2020 seasons. That's going back from December of 2019 to just up until now, where
Oh,
Attack,
December. Yeah.
yeah, December, where well, Attack on Titans kind of said, you know what, I'm going to put my giant PP out on the table right now. And just have all of these small anime that are currently trying to wrap up their cores or their seasons right now and just sweep the news like outlets for what's going on. So yeah, Sam, do you want to give your like just a short first impressions of episode 1 of the last season of Attack on Titan?
Oh my goodness! Like, uh, I'm trying to remember. Are you up to date on the manga or no?
No, I'm an anime only.
Okay, same here. I'm just an anime only guy too. I've it seems really really good. I like the approach that I like it, but I don't like it in the sense that it's a different perspective that we're seeing, that we're following. We're sort of seeing the other side of the conflict, and in that sense, we get to see a little bit of how I forgot what the name of their people were, but
Marlians.
is it Marlians, or I thought it started with an L, but at least like Marlians, like the Marlian people and how they're being treated in the society that's outside of the walls. And it was interesting because we get to see the results of the failed mission the that Berthold and crew tried to do on the inside of the walls. So it like I said, it was interesting. We would get to see a resolution for a failure that was on their part, and it seems like we're slowly going to get exposure to how they're being treated and the military and how like how they're being treated in the military and the way their society is structured. And it's reminiscent of the first few seasons because we're following these not necessarily cadets, but these privates or these individuals that they seemed as though like they were just out of boot camp, right? They're still green, they're still hopeful, and as I said, it's we're seeing it on the other side of the war. So we'll probably get a full picture of how these people are being treated and try to understand who the true enemy is, which was the theme of the finals of the last season, where Aaron and crew were trying to figure out who the true enemy was. So I'm very hopeful, and I'm ready for this wild ride.
Very good. I only mentioned that right now because of how much the Attack on Titan kind of final premiere, or the start of the final season, has basically just swept all the other news stories aside. It's the only thing news outlets are really talking about,
Oh
except
yeah.
for the other major news story is that Crunchyroll has been bought out by Funimation.
Yes. What are your thoughts on that?
I have no thoughts because we're not talking about it.
Oh, never
I
mind.
just say that these are just news stories that we're not talking about because what we're
Okay.
actually talking about are animes that are premiering for the winter season. Because after one more episode, we're taking our normal break for the anime season for January. Because yeah, Attack on Titan just like basically I said put its PP on the table and said, yeah, we're not waiting. Like so, the actual
I
winter
am
season.
here.
Right. Yeah, the winter season of 2021 actually begins on the second week of January. So Attack on Titan is literally a month early. So I wanted to highlight right now, Sam, with you in the news, just other animes that maybe won't catch your attention because there's a lot of new properties, but again, the winter season is packed with sequels. We have
Okay.
the second cores of ReZero. We have second season of Reincarnated as a Slime. We have the second season
Hmm.
of Promised Neverland, the second season of Doctor Stone, second season after second season after second season. So I just wanted to talk about just wanted to talk about right now some new anime, and like I said, the first one is a game adaptation called Horsaga, HOR Saga. So Horsaga. This is
Cool.
a
Okay.
game adaptation done by Lingdon Films, and it's in the genre of family, or not family, but fantasy and magic. And the premise goes It's a medieval fairy tale where a war has broken out, and the king has been betrayed and murdered by one of his dukes, who's now rebuilding the kingdom how he wants it to be. 3 years, our story, 3 years later, the original heir to the throne has been growing up to come to age, and now, disguised as a knight, she forms a band to overthrow her father's murderer. So, Sam, how does this sound to you? Do you think you're going to be interested when we come back to talk about what animes we'll be watching? You think this will make your list?
I would be very interested. I would try to give it the 3 episode test because you said it was a she, so it would be interesting to see what type of society they're trying to depict. Because if it's anything similar to, or if it's trying to be true to the actual Dark Ages, so no, sorry, not was it the Dark Ages? I'm
Yeah.
not sure. The medieval, if it's going to be try to be true to the medieval times, it will be interesting to see this character try to pull a Mulan where she's a woman and she's going undercover as a man, as a knight, to try to overthrow this duke, sort of in a Joan of Arc type fashion, or if it's going to be super fantastical where it's, I don't know, because it can go about it in a good way, but it could also go about it in a very bad way too. So I would at least try to give it the 3 episode test to, as I say, give it a fair shake to see how they're going to do it. What about you? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, yeah, I'm just highlighting these now because of course, if we're only watching five, we can only keep up with five anime a season. Then none
Yeah.
of these are really going to make my list, and they haven't really caught my attention. So I don't think I would give this a chance. But
Okay.
again, highlighting what you just said, Sam, about the nature of like addressing how she goes about operating in this world disguised as a man would be interesting. And of course, it has a video. It's a video game adaptation, so there is enough probably of a story beats enough to warrant 12 episodes, which Linden Films is going to try to address and like go out to a full season. But again, it's probably just going to be a complete story, one shot, and then basically one and done. So
Okay.
not going to be much interest to me. But with the second one, also a Linden Films. This is called Otherside Picnic. Otherside, and it is a novel adaptation, and it has
Okay.
the genre of sci-fi mystery and shoujo ai. So it's a love story for female viewers. So
Of course.
two university students have, or sorry, two university students live lives become intertwined when they experience the other side, a world alongside our own, populated by all supernatural beings spoken in ghost stories. These two girls, for research, profit, and to find a missing person, venture into the other side. So, Sam, a sci fi mystery shonen ai story. How does it sound to you?
I'm going to pass because they're trying to play it up like it's a mystery. It's not going to be a mystery. It's not going to be something that's going to captivate me. It may be nice for somebody who's into something that's casual, or because it sounds like it's going to be more of a slice of life slash light comedy type thing. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, these did you say girls or these women?
Well, they're university students.
University students, okay. Well, still, like, I could see them trying to play up the cutesy aspect where it's like, oh no, it's like we just happened to come across these supernatural people. Let's go, like, get some cookies and just explore with them a little bit. Have some casual everyday hijinks. So
Gotcha.
that
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where I got from it.
My anime list has kind of been notorious with having poorly, I guess, structured preview or a synopsis of their anime. Again, I try to rewrite them in a way that would seem a little bit more interesting, so I'm not
Yeah.
pulling them directly from my anime list. But yeah, I do encourage everyone to check out their PVs or their previews because again, trailers and the actual anime shorts for these anime series are going to be a little bit more revealing than just a quick synopsis that my anime list gives. So, our third anime on our list, I only have five.
Okay.
So, our number third is Skate the Infinite. This is original. Uh,
Yes.
this is original property done by Studio Bones, and of course, it's in the sports genre. So yeah, skates is about skateboarders or inline skating skateboarders. So Reki, a high school student and skateboarder, is addicted to competing in a highly secret and dangerous downhill race known as S, which takes place in an abandoned mine. So Sam, you sound like you've already heard about this. So you think this is going to make your list?
This is going to make my list. I've seen the promo video that they had for it. I've seen the art. It reminds me a lot of Akudama Drive in the aesthetic style. And as far as the action, it reminds me of Air Gear a little bit. So it seems a bit more of an updated version of Air Gear. Whereas Air Gear, they focused on rollerblading. This is going to focus on skateboards, and it seems like it's going to be very, very exciting, or at least interesting to say the least. So I have my eyes on this guy.
All right, cool. Yeah. So yeah, it does seem to be not going in the traditional sense of what you might cover with like skateboarding through like organized professional skateboarding, but this is like more underground and illicit kind of skateboarding. And they even say that there's going to be like beef between the skateboarders, so it might get into the crime element. There's no rating on it, so it might be just PG or PG-13, but there is definitely a world where there's going to be some hardcore skateboarders and maybe death is involved. So it's going to be very interesting to follow through on this in a couple of weeks.
I would say
So
that just real quick, it seems like when you said like making the skateboarders underground, it seems like it's harkening back to the earlier days of skateboarding because skateboarding was really really niche and nobody hardly did it. So it seems like it's taking it back to its roots where it's like a select few people, you know,
yeah, for
are
sure.
aware of what's going on.
Yeah, of course, because it grew up in a subculture and it was like very much dismissive for how dangerous it was. So yeah, the second one. This is a follow up to an anime suggestion by you, Sam. This is 2.43, the Seinen High School Boys Volleyball Club. So this
Oh,
is based off a novel, and it's going to be animated by David Productions, which I cannot say that is one of my favorite anime studios because they just did Fire Force. They do all the JoJo Bizarre Adventure installments. So I'm in love with that studio. So yeah, the synopsis for this is a newborn teen with a delinquent, a worrywart, hot-blooded shorty captain, a foul-mouthed vice captain, and a photosensitive uh, spiker form a new high school or form together to become their high school's rising stars. So that you introduced this to me, Sam, a couple of weeks ago, I believe, and
yeah.
I did finally see the PV, and I did call it during the episode before. It was like hot guys doing volleyball, but that
Guys doing volleyball, yeah.
yeah, but that wasn't a fair assessment of me. Now that I looked at the PV, knows now that the studio David Production is doing it, as well as based off of a novel. So for me, it's definitely going to make my list. But how does it sound for you, Sam? Since you're not a big high Q or sports anime viewer.
Again, I'm going to be wary of it because it for me it's going to seem like a haiku clone. So it's interesting that they made the shortest one the captain, yeah, just changing the dynamics of the team a little bit. So I would be a little skeptical. So I honestly probably won't start watching it until you say otherwise. Say, oh, this is the best thing, like the supernatural predecessor for haiku, or it's whack. I'm pretty much going to be following your lead on this one.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. So I mean, even with so just to mention, Haikyuu is finishing up its. This was the next to last episode, and that's why I'm kind of upset about Attack on Titan. I'm very jaded about Attack on Titan just premiering way too early because everyone like the last rally for this episode in Haikyuu was just so spot on. It's just like it's on all the popularity charts. It's just like nothing close to Attack on Titan because I'm going to keep saying that Attack on Titan's big Titanic peepees on the table and no one is looking anywhere else. So anyway.
It's so funny. It's just like hearing you. It's basically you're just saying, "How dare you attack on Titan? Let Haikyuu have its time to shine. How dare you?"
Yeah, but that's the same thing with like even Jujutsu Kaisen. I mean, they're finishing up their first cores and no one's talking about it, even though they're slated for a second cores next year. It's just like one of those things. It's just like ruining the staying power of the fall animes. This is because of Attack on Titan just destroying everyone's in this week. But anyways, back onto our last topic for our news of the week this is Back Arrow, another anime that you brought up, or maybe I brought this up for you, Sam, because it's a mecha anime.
Yeah,
So this is an original property done by Studio Volnen or VOLN, and it's in the genre, like I said, mech, but it also has fantasy attached onto it. So the synopsis goes: one day, a mysterious man named Back Arrow appears in a land surrounded by a wall. Having lost his memories, he only recalls the sentence, "I come from beyond the wall." In his quest to restore his memories, he ventures into this land called Ringa Randu. Yeah. So it's basically Attack on Titan again. That's why we closed up with Attack on Titan because basically that. But again, the PV does way more justice than the synopsis does. So again, encouraging to watch the PV of this. But Sam, does this sound like a mech that you'll be interested in?
oh, definitely. I mean, just because it's a mech, I'm going to put my eyes on it. And I've seen the promotional art for it, so the art style seems kind of interesting. I haven't seen the. You said there was an actual promo video for it that
Yeah,
came
there's
out?
a yeah, there's a PV for it. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to have to check that one out too, at least just to see how the aesthetic of the town, the land, and the country he's going to be in. Because when you just gave that synopsis, the only thing that I have for reference is Attack on Titan. So of course I'm thinking about the inside of Wall Maria, things of that nature. So it sounds a little bit like an Attack on Titan clone, but I would have to look at the promo video to be for sure, to be certain. But what about you? Because did you get a chance to see it yourself?
Yes, I watched the promo video because there's one significant fact that I left out, and why I'm going to put this on my to watch list later on. But that this is by the same director of, drum roll please, Code Geass.
Oh, okay.
I left this as last because again I haven't talked about this. I mentioned this like maybe 2 weeks to you, Sam. That 2 weeks ago to you, Sam. That Haikyuu is probably now my favorite anime of all time. So this kind of episode most recently kind of proved that, and it replaced Code Geass. So that's kind of why I put this in the last spot to talk about.
One
Yeah,
episode was able to knock out Code Geass. I don't know how. I don't know what that says about Code Geass. It must not have been that strong for you, Jay. If a single episode was able to knock it out of its place.
oh no, I'm just saying totally that Haikyuu up to this point has been battling with Code Geass, and I'm like, well, now that season 4 is wrapped, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards Code Geass. I mean, to Haikyuu now. I think it's just a thing of enjoyability. It's like Code Geass gets really dark in places,
Oh
and not
yeah,
to say that it's not casual viewing, but the story is so dense and it just takes a lot of effort to enjoy it. Even though I consider it a masterpiece for a long time, and
yeah.
like the standard for mech for the mech genre, it's just that everything in Haikyuu is just feels good. Sports. It teaches me
Sports.
something. It teaches me this, how to play volleyball, and it's just like overall just a good time. And Anyways, yes. So that's basically the news, Sam. That's the news. All right. So on to our next segment is our best of 2020 list. So again,
Dun, dun,
Timecodes are going to be in
dun.
the descriptions. We're going to go through basically where do we place things on our list, where do things like stand after like watching all 12 episodes, giving it some times, trying to ignore recency bias. And also we have a nice little coded way that we do our top 10 lists where we have 3 ways to respond to each other, where you can do a Kobe, which is that you have nailed it. So Sam has his number 10 and I have my number 10 are the same, then I say Kobe, meaning that it's in the exact same spot. There's a Yeet, which if his number 10 is higher on my list, I will say Yeet. So we'll save that discussion for later. And Bench, if his number 10 is not on my list at all, I will say Bench. So, Sam, let's start off with you. Your number 10 or your least favorite, I don't know. It's not even fair to say, but your number 10 spot for your favorite
Yeah.
anime of the show.
Oh, did we want to do because you mentioned it earlier when you talked about the winter seasons for next year? Did we want to do the honorable mentions a little bit later then? Where
We could do the honorable mentions at the end. So,
okay,
like,
yeah,
have
that's
that for
fine.
our own discussion. Because, again, I led in with talking about Haikyuu,
Yeah.
and that would be my number one of the year. But, that doesn't qualify. So, yeah, we can save that for after we settle our final list for the episode.
Okay. So then for my number 10, I would have to say is Balance Unlimited, the Millionaire Detective.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What?
That is so weird. That's Kobe, because that's my
That's a
number 10.
Kobe?
Yeah,
Oh, snap.
so weird. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. So why is it your number 10? Tell me, tell me, tell me.
I would have to say because it was nice, it was fun. It was just engaging enough for me to keep going. Near the later episodes, I was sort of falling out of it, and even though the resolutions of the overarching mystery were wrapping up, they were coming to a close. For some reason, didn't feel as invested as I was in the beginning of the show. I'm not sure if it was because of the mystery box effect or because of how they wrapped it up. I guess it might have seemed to. I'm trying to think of the word. It seemed as though I couldn't really tell if it seemed too obvious or not. I would have to watch it again to really understand why I fell out of it near the end. But as I said, it was a good enough time for me. Why is it on the number 10 spot for you?
Yeah. So, do you think it had to do with the interruption of its broadcasting that you weren't able to really watch it week to week or even like binge it at one time? Do you think that had any way to infect your how you received it?
If anything, I would say it probably added more anticipation to it. That could have been it. That the beginning was fairly strong and that it there was so much space between I think it was the second and third one because there was so much space the anticipation for the newer episodes probably had skewed it in my head. That could have been it, but if anything, the breakage for me, it helped me try to watch the show a little bit more. Did it have a negative effect for you?
No, because after that break, after episode two, again, this was back in the spring of 2020, and that
Yeah.
it was basically at the height of when the big C word was hitting its hardest in the major animation industry cities. So very much Balance Unlimited suffered in that way that it took until basically late summer for all the episodes to become available and to be viewed. It's right now on Netflix. So for me, it made my level level 10. It made my
Yes.
10 because of like the 11 episodes again. It's basically a buddy cop drama or a comedy because and you don't really see that much nowadays. That's very much a bygone genre of action
Yeah.
that went out with like Die Hard and people got tired of that. But yeah, to see an anime kind of readdress that and kind of put a spin on it with having somewhat of a science fiction leaning with the millionaire is his name Keisuke? I forgot his name already.
Daisuke, Daisuke.
Daisuke, yeah, Daisuke. Is that he's just beyond wealthy, like he's the heir apparent of like one of the richest families in Japan in the story. And he's just able to have a Jarvis level, Tony Stark kind of level of AI technology and just control over the things he's able to do. And given that he's joining the police force, or he's becoming a detective with a no nonsense um, dis, inspector with a heart of gold, and I'll die on this cross kind of personality. It's just enjoyable in that way. So I wasn't really much into it for the premise of the show, I guess, like the mystery and the investigation. I was more in for it to just see how these two characters interact, and it's very heartwarming. There's a scene from the first episode and the last episode, or basically
Yes.
near the end of the series, is that it's mirrored, and it still it still plays out the same way, but there's a lot more context. You grow with the characters, you get to know what they're all about, you get the two main leads and how they see each other and how they grow to respect one another. And even though that same scene happens again, you kind of get it's funnier now, when first time it was really like, oh, this is a dangerous individual. So I like
Yeah.
that aspect. It made my number 10.
Okay. No, that's good. Like I said, it was a fun romp, and you really hit the nail on the head there.
Right.
With your
Yeah.
assessment.
Fun romp, makes the list on a fun romp premise. But yeah, so wow, Kobe right off the bat. So you're number 9.
Swish. My number 9 would be Appare-Ranman.
Oh wow, okay, that's a bench for me because I never picked that up because of given all the things that happened with the Big C, and it
Yeah.
got like, pushed back in its premiere. So yeah, tell me about this. How did this wrap up for you?
It's, now that you mention it, it's kind of odd. The lower moon of my list, they were all really affected by the Big C. So I'm just now realizing that. But I would say it was fun. With the story of Appare-Ranman, it takes place in I'm trying to think about like the time, around I would say like time wise, probably around when cars are becoming a thing, and they were sort of competing. What's like internal combustion versus steam, like that sort of thing. And basically, you follow these two Japanese men through some hijinks. They end up leaving Japan and arriving in America. And in order for them to get back to Japan, because it's very expensive, they would have to, no, they ended up becoming part of a race where they have to race across the states and become the first one so they can win the prize money, so they can earn their way back to Japan. And it's very much like a Japanese version of Wacky Races, and the characters, they're very fun, and you get to see them grow a little bit too. Whereas one character, he's the one that makes the car. I think his name was Appare. Yeah, Appare. Where he came from a wealthy family, and he just basically did what he wanted to. But now he's in a situation where he sort of has to depend on himself, and he has other people that depend on him and his skills. So you get to see him grow a little bit, and the person that he's quote unquote trapped with, he's also from a wealthy family. He was a teacher at a kendo, or sorry, not a kendo, but at a dojo. So having him sort of rough it as well with Appare, it was seeing them both grow in a sense, and it was sort of a bit of a buddy comedy with those two as well. And as I said, it was just fun enough to where I was able to watch the show. The end of the series, it got it start feeling a little bit different because of the overarching story with some of the racers. But as I said, it was a good time. I would recommend it for somebody. Oh, I would also have to say, like, if you for all the English speakers out there, beware when you look up the anime intro, because I don't know how much of this is true, because I read this somewhere on the internet where the Japanese people thought that the F word was just a cool way of saying good, and it seems as though like that stereotype is propagated in the opening as well. The opening is very catchy, but then they start saying the F word in weird instances, and I'm just like, they actually played this on the air. They let this go. So it was just funny for me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that it did catch my attention again. That was on your earlier it's like to
Yeah.
watch list, and again, it did get affected by this big C. And the one thing that again, Wacky Races is probably the best comparison. I was thinking more like Death Race 2000 and a lot of like travel around the world in 80 days, but like
Yeah.
or Rat Race is that it's just that countryside kind of get from place A to place B while being in competition with other people, which is a good mechanism for comedy with drama, a way to introduce characters and play off them very well. So yeah, it's one of those animes that I'm going to feel bad that I missed out on. But again, that's the kind of the downside to the whole seasonal anime, and that I want to bring up now is because I knew this was going to make your list, and I thought like how do we talk about how much anime gets produced in the year? And Sam,
Yeah.
do you have an estimate? Do you have a guess about how many seasons of anime premiered this year?
How many seasons?
Yes. So
Oh,
either seasons or and follow up seasons and like first season premieres.
oh my gosh. This year, I'd say 50.
What seasons?
I don't know.
Like,
It's a lot of anime, bro.
well, yeah. So like it was very much surprising. I was looking into like the broadcasting schedule for the
Yeah.
issue. Again, even though a lot of these premieres got pushed back, it didn't really halt production or like standard broadcasting procedures. So the total number for anime that premiered this year was actually 139 seasons,
Oh,
and
damn.
yeah, only 24 of them were actually sequel seasons. So this
Only
does not,
24?
yeah, 24, yeah.
Holy
So
smokes. Okay.
yeah, this does not include OVAs, ONAs, films, or specials. So there was a lot of anime this year, and that's why I said earlier before the recording that like this was a good year for anime, and it's just like a lot of it is probably just going under the rug. So like Appare-Ranman is just one of those animes I think I'm going to regret when we come back to the year when we come back to 2020 and 2030 when we talk about anime that we should be rewatching. Then this is
Yeah.
probably make it, but yeah, moving on to my number 9, Sam. I'm sure this is not on your list. So, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun.
Oh, that's a bench for me. Why did it
Yeah,
make your list?
yeah. So this is on my list purely for the fluff of it. This is just like good, wholesome anime that's just easy to digest. It's basically a story about Hanako-kun, or actually Hanako-san, because originally in the Japanese story that it's a female ghost, but in this story it's a male ghost, and he's basically he gets into a contract with a high school student, and they basically want to go into a quest to settle or put to rest all the ghosts that are acting up in the school. And it's like 12 episodes. It's on Funimation. It's on Hulu. It's a good
Yeah.
time. No hassle. And again, the reason why it really made my list above Millionaire Detective is that the art style by Studio Lurch is like Lerche, Lurch, and it's just so beautiful. It's like one of those things of when you look at it, you want to take a picture of it and hang it up on your wall. But that's just completely throughout the whole series. There's no
Okay, that's good.
poorly drawn animations or scenes. There's attention to backgrounds. There's attention to how the characters move, how they interact with each other, how the action's shot. Again, it's just a solid, well-rounded series, and I recommend it highly. Even though it made my number 9 spot, but yeah. So I guess we both had number benches for our number 9. So that's cool. All right, so ready to move on to your number 8, Sam?
Yes, it's actually kind of interesting how you described Hanako, is because same reason why Hanako was your number 9. That's the reason why my number 8 is where it's at. I have Brand New Animal for my number 8.
Oh yeah, that's a bench for me.
So a lot of the reason, like you said, because it was like Hanako was a nice fluff romp for you. I would say Brand New Animal was like that for me. It was, just light enough and it was just fun enough to where I could keep going. And they touched a little bit on the humanoid and the beastman interactions a little bit. They didn't get too heavy, but it was just heavy enough to where you can understand the emotional turmoil that the characters were having, and it was still just a fun time all throughout.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. To mention again, like all the anime that again, I'm probably gonna say
Yeah.
this a bunch because now that I'm thinking about what you could be on your list, I was like, oh yeah, of course, brand new animals going to looking at all the anime again that premiered and got affected by the big C. Like we had the final season of Food Wars this year. We had a
Yeah.
sequel to Inuyasha. We had three Korean manga adaptations. We had the reboot of the Digimon Adventure series. Of course, we had the Studio Trigger anime that you just mentioned, and then
Yeah.
we had the follow up to ReZero and My Teenage Romantic Comedy. So again, like so much anime is probably just going to completely fly over my head because I did watch what probably the first three episodes of Brand New Animal or BNA,
Yeah.
and completely when it got affected by delays, I just forgot about it. I had to move on to my summer anime, so it's just like one of those situations. Yeah, so it
Well,
sucks, but
it
yeah,
just like with I think with Hodaka, all of Brand New Animal it's out there on Netflix now, so you can watch it in its entirety, and I think it's in English now too. I don't know. I would have to
yeah.
check on that.
No, it's definitely in English. We had the news story about that like months
Yeah.
ago. Anyways, yeah. So my number eight probably be a bench for you also is a Great Pretender.
Oh no, that's a yeet for me.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool. Wonderful. So yeah. So we'll talk about that later then. Since this is higher up on your list. So what's your number seven, Sam?
We might as well talk about it now because number 7, I have a Great Pretender.
Oh, all right. It's still higher on your list. So you tell me why it's higher up on your list since it's an anime I introduced you to.
Yes, it's I feel bad now because because like I said, you watched it first. You were the you were the one that put me onto this, and it was, I would say, like it was a little bit more casual than Brand New Animal in the sense that I could play it and I could stop it and I can come back to it and still have the story go. And I like how they have mini arcs within their season, and it was just how they deal with the characters and their growth, and how essentially each con gave you background on some of the different characters, and they helped the characters work through their own issues. So I would say, like, I just really appreciated that. Why was, because you said Great Pretender was number 8 on your list? Why was it number 8?
Yeah, so number eight again, the another series that got way affected by all the c words or the big c word is that yeah, 23 episodes on Netflix by Studio Wit or sorry, Wit Studios. I always
Yeah.
have to remember it's Wit Studios, but yeah, again, it's a everything that you said, Sam. It's a if Steven Spielberg invented or sorry, if Steven Spielberg directed Catch Me If You Can, the anime. It's basically what it is.
Oh, okay. I've never seen Catch Me If You Can. So
Uh,
you have seen it. So you'd say that this anime was inspired by that movie?
no, it just plays in the same vein of the con
Okay.
artist genre and playing to people that professionally gamble with ne'er do wells and like the criminal underground, but aren't really doing hard crimes. They're doing all the soft crimes like getting over on people, like like because grifters or conmen can get over on
Yeah.
essentially. And Great Pretender does go into the shop talk, the hobby talk of it, about this is how you set up a con, this is how the con's going to play out. It doesn't do so much of the Ocean's Elevens a way of scheming of like setting it up and then paying it off later. They're kind of like letting you roll with the characters, trying to figure out everything that's going to happen, as well as they kind of play out in real time. And again, Studio Wit's good on their animation, so it's visually like stunning to look at. It has somewhat of a Studio Trigger feel to it in some places, as
Yeah.
well as it does do a lot of world traveling. So you do get to see how grifts happen. Grifts being, professional cons, how grifts happen in different countries, and how do different people respond to crime differently, and how do you get over on people in different cultures. So again, all that's like top tier. It's just like everything above this. It's only in my eighth spot because everything above this I just love more, and will visit the other ones a little bit more. Then I'll come back to Great Pretender. But yeah, that's why it's on my number eight. And this was your number seven. So my
Yes.
number seven is Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken.
Oh, that's a bench for me.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, cool. So
Why, go ahead. Go ahead. Why is Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken number 7 for you?
yeah, so again, speaking to being judging this on who are my favorite kind of people in the world, directors,
Yeah.
is this is a Masuki Yuasa joint, or I don't even know what you would call it. Like that's yeah, you would say Spike Lee joint. That's who kind
Yes.
of doing that. But yeah, but but Masuki Yuasa production. And again, like even speaking to most recently that the New York Times put it on their one of their best TV shows of the 2020s, is that it's a beautiful again, I'm going to use the word wholesome, but it's not even that. It's just that it's a beautiful story about kids coming into their passions, kind of developing their ambitions, and not letting how does that get flushed out in the real world. And again, like he has a very unique style of drawing his characters. They're like over exaggerated. They're somewhat of a Looney Tunes kind of way about it, but also that speaking to how the whole series is about these girls making a comic book, or making a oh sorry not making a comic book, but
Yeah.
developing a series into like an anime, and drawing out all the panels, creating characters, creating worlds, and they're just envisioning it how a kid would see things. And that's just again something beautiful that just gets easily overlooked. And it's only so high on my list because a lot of that is more of me being a jaded 20-year-old something, is that it's not as magical, but it's one of those animes that I would say to anyone that doesn't watch anime to watch. Like this is what anime is, and that's kind of a beautiful statement to say. Is that this is like 12 episodes. It's by Studio Science Soru, and it's on Crunchyroll. It's on HBO Max, so it's very much
Oh,
probably
it's on
going
the
to
Max? I didn't know it was on the Max.
yeah.
Nice.
So it's probably going to get attention from the New York Times article, but yeah, it's just a again well-rounded series, and again, it's a good year for anime, and it's a shame that it's so high on my list because everything again above it is just a little bit, it edges out in ways that I wasn't going to expect it. But of all his works, Yuasa's works, like this is probably top tier for him.
Okay, no, that's good. It's kind of interesting because the reason why, well, I hadn't finished watching it myself, and a little bit because of the shop talk we've talked once before. Like because usually with these top 10 lists, like I would the way that I make them is like animes that I would suggest, and I wouldn't necessarily suggest Eizouken off the bat, mainly because of all the shop talk that there is in anime. Like for somebody who is well versed in anime, I would suggest it, but not to somebody who's still new to the genre. But like you said, it's very wholesome, and it is very beautiful in what they do. And I'm actually kind of mad that I didn't finish it. So I'm getting the little bit of guilt that you've got about Appare-Ranman.
Right. Yeah, I do feel that we just covered Bakuman recently, about basically the same kind of premise of the shop talk of creating
Yeah.
manga or anime, and I just edged. I would only say that the difference between those two is that you do have a lot of leeway because they're explaining it how a child would understand it. So I think it's a little bit more digestible to new anime viewers. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, but that's just a critique for it by itself. So yeah.
Yeah.
So Sam, you're number six. We're up to your number six.
All right, let's see. I want to see if this is going to make your list or not. But Gleipnir.
Oh, that's a bench. I totally wrote that off. That would be in my honorable mentions, but yeah. Okay, tell me why it's on your number six.
Mainly because it was one of the edgier animes. It was reminiscent of Future Diary, in the sense of these kids, they were roped into this life or well, roped into this game. It's not necessarily a life or death battle, but it turned into that because of the participants of the game. And it's just interesting how they framed it. There's an overarching mystery on the main character with his powers, because you have to do certain you have to do a specific thing to get powers, and with this kid, he didn't do that thing. He ended up getting his powers through another method. And so just following that mystery and his dynamic with the different characters who have the different powers as well, it was just very interesting, and it was consistent in that nature for me. It set a tone and it stuck to it. So it did a very good job in that, and also how the studio animated the fights. So
Okay. Yeah, that's completely fair. I mean, it was on my to watch list. It didn't pass the 3 episode test for me, so I never went back to, of course, finish the rest of
yeah.
the series. It was very much in the same vein of what I think will probably be what Chainsaw Man will be like. Again, a new story that we can't really talk about is that
Yeah.
it was revealed this week that it will be getting an anime adaptation coming in 2022 by Studio Mappa. So
Oh,
it's
Mappa's getting it. Ooh,
Yes.
ooh.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of body horror, and again, speaking to the grossness of the main character's ability and how he operates it with his female co-pilot, essentially,
Yeah.
kind of it was just off-putting for me, but I understand why. It's definitely one of the best anime of the season, or best anime of the well, not best anime. It's one of the top tier animes of the year, especially given what you said about the fight choreography is just beautiful. It's
Mhm.
just heavy hitting when punches are thrown. But yeah, that's your number six. All right, my number six is probably definitely a yeet for you, Sam. So my number six is Juju Kaisen.
Oh yeah, that's a yeet for me.
All right, cool. All right, so what's your number five then?
My number five. I doubt that this is going to make your list, but it's Tower of God.
No, that's a yeet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's a good surprise for me.
All
So,
right.
all right, what's your number five? What's your number five?
So your number five was Tower of God, and that's a yeet for me. All right, cool. So my number five is Decadence.
Oh, that's a yeet for me, dude. We're just doing yeets.
So interesting. All right, cool. So then, what's your number four then?
My number four is It Invaded.
Wow, that's a Kobe.
Oh my goodness, yes.
two two yeets and a Kobe. Cool.
So why is It Invaded number four for you?
All right. So again, very much in the way that Code Geass, I guess, used to be my favorite animes. One of my top favorite animes is Psychopaths, and this just hits that Criminal Mind, or the American show Criminal Mind kind of vein of how do you understand the mind of a murderer, and it very much goes into that kind of the psychology, the behavioral analysis of a person that commits crimes, and but then they put a not so much of a high concept twist on that, or exploration of that, but it very much does it well enough that you create a virtual space essentially. Again, don't want to go into ruining anything on the show, but
Yeah.
onto a virtual space they create and kind of break down what the environment of that space represents as the killer's mind. So if like the killer is if their method of murder is strangulation, then their whole world might look like a twister. I don't know. Just trying to be relative. But yeah, the main character again is in the same vein as, again, I guess, oh, what would that show? I guess no, wait, it's not Criminal Minds. What am I thinking about? Maybe I am thinking about Criminal Minds. But anyways, yeah, the same way that the main character is a criminal himself and he's going after these criminals, and you see that because it takes a criminal or criminal genius to catch a criminal,
Yeah.
that they explore that in like depth about how do criminals actually perceive each other, as well as how do cops react with working with criminals and knowing what their background is. And again, this is 13 episodes, easily digestible. It's by Studio Naz and AZ, or available on Funimation, available on Hulu. And again, it's the ending kind of took me back because of, we talked about this before, is that it dives a little bit into, I guess, a little bit fantasy, thinking about Star Trek in the way of when they introduce Q. It kind of makes the whole Star Trek universe seem a little bit more fantastical than it was previously. But
Yeah.
again, revisiting It Invaded, it does wrap up solidly, and it does have a consistent sense of itself. So that's why it's so high up on the list. I'll definitely go back to view it. So why is it for number you?
No, it's. I would say definitely it plays well into the mystery aspect, which is why it's so high on my list. Whereas, like that's where it did better than Balance Unlimited, in my opinion. Whereas Balance Unlimited, it played around with mystery a little bit, whereas It Invaded, that was a huge focus of it. And as you said, how they delved into the psychology of the criminals and trying to catch these serial killers or the persons of interest. And it seemed like they took cues from. I'm trying to think of. It seemed like they took cues from Hannibal, in the sense where in the first season of Hannibal you had this detective, the way that he would sort of find the killers is he was immerse himself in the killer's psychology, trying to think like the killer. And they just took that concept and they sort of did it literally, or as literally as you could get in the world, where, as you said, they make up this mindscape to where you can essentially go into a fabricated space or a copy of the killer's mind to try to understand what they're doing, and so that you can plan ahead. And just the way that the characters are, like you said, the main detective character and the characters that he affects and the overarching story. It was just very, very well done.
Yeah, Hannibal was the other show I was trying to think about, but yeah, for sure. And now I just realized I know exactly what your remaining three anime are because we skipped all of them. Anyway, so yeah, what are your number? What's your number three? What's your number
My,
three?
my number three is Decadence.
Yes. All right. So that was my number five. So why is it your number third for your best famous, best anime of the year?
Best famous anime of the year. Yes, I would say just the story, everything. Because as we mentioned before, the early turn in the story really does shifts the frame of the work of it. In the beginning, it seemed like it was going to be uh, not necessarily a typical adventure anime, but the turn and the story and how it affects the characters, their relations with one another, and the focus of the story. It, oh my goodness, it just does it wonderfully. And I just find it funny how they were able to have these chibi looking characters along with these regular humanoid people, and to have them in the same space and to have a semi serious story happen at the same time. It just makes it work, and it's definitely a wonderful work. I think it was it only 12 episodes, Jay?
Yeah, it was 12 episodes. Yes.
like it was nice and succinct. It was able to get its point across, and it dealt with a couple themes in terms of fate and what you're willing to do with it, or how you're willing to handle it as well. And I think that it satisfied its goals completely, and it was just great and wonderful. What about you? Why was because Decadence was number 4 for you? 5?
Decadence was number 5 for me. Yeah. So again, at the halfway point or the lower 5 moons, I guess for me, is
Yeah,
that it does deliver again in the same way as it invaded. It delivers on this high concept of sci-fi that again this the turn in episode 2 just again is probably one of the greatest turns in anime. It just goes down as that because I actually watched it twice back to back because for legitimately like concerning reasons I was like, am I watching the wrong thing? Because that's how abrupt that changes for episode 2, and it just hits it so well. It develops it so well. You just think it just you think you're watching a completely different anime. Just honestly,
exactly.
that's how powerful the twist is, and it works out so well because you're dealing with a post-apocalyptic world. You're dealing with somewhat of a downgraded society of humanity is on the run from these monsters, as well as they're generating zero gravity fields. So again, Studio Nuts, I believe, is doing the animation for this, and how they animate, moving bodies through zero gravity space and fighting combat in that way. It's just so beautiful to watch. But also their character builds are like dynamic. It's like the whole world feels lived in. It just feels like this is a world like you could see yourself surviving in essentially because
Yeah.
you have a situation of very much like what was that book called? Sorry, it just had a movie recently about moving cities. Mortal.
Oh, Mortal Engines. Yeah.
So I guess it's very much like Mortal Engines, the anime. But again, then they take that whole premise and then turn it on its head, and then just makes it better. And everything that they do past episode 2 to the very end is just well done. The story flows without much interruption. You get really endeared to the characters, and you kind of feel very much sad if something bad happens to it. And you get their motivations, given that you set up like their past as well as their motivations and the traumas that they've suffered. And when people come together at the end of the world, essentially, it just makes the story more engaging. And that's
Oh
why,
yeah.
at least, it made my top 5 lower moons. But yeah, so Sam, that's my number 5. We talked about my number 4, which is It Invaded, and my number 3, I think, is your number 1, unless I'm miscounting. But Akudama Drive.
That's a yeet for me.
Yes, I realize. I know. Yeah. So yeah, Akudama Drive was my number 3. All right. So your number 2.
My number 2 is Akudama Drive. Oh my goodness. So why was Akudama Drive your number 3?
Yeah, very much. You put me onto this. I would
Yeah.
completely have written this off because the synapses again on my anime list is just garbage. So it's very much like I said earlier about what did I say about Great Pretender is that this is basically Ocean's 11 but cyberpunk, and this was definitely the year for this to come out, and it is so visually stylized. Again, this is another one that I would say, like, if you just take any screenshot of it, you can put it up on your wall. It's just beautifully engaging in that way that you could just study the backgrounds, study how the characters move throughout the world. It's very
Oh
much
yeah.
created in that way for the selling, how they do that. But anyways, the story is just a gang of criminals going about their lives and going and planning a heist. And every episode is named after a famous heist movie. The characters have their own roles. They don't have proper names. They're given their names of their jobs. So one of them is just named Carrier or Courier. Another one is like Doctor, and the other one's like everyone's job is their name essentially, which is
Yeah.
very much like how criminals operate. Everyone gets a code name, very much like Reservoir Dogs. You get Mr. Black and Mr. Pink, so forth and so on. And then you throw in this girl who is our basically our sub in for the audience, but she isn't like one of those damsels in distress. She definitely has a character build to her. She gets introduced by basically being a goody goody in this world that's divided because of criminals are out on the loose with like thousands of years of death penalties if they get caught, and even with like side characters like cops in the world so engaging that they have like martial arts when it comes to their combat with the Akudama or demons, I think is the translation, or just criminals,
Yeah,
and
just
how the
criminals.
world,
Yeah.
yeah, criminals, yeah, how the world is divided, and there's even this somewhat of a supernatural element because there's this black cat that talks, and even with like the comedy between a very much looks like the dude from Hunter x Hunter with the glasses that hangs around with Gon and Killua, but anyways, yeah. So again, like the
Yeah.
comedy's on point, the writing's on point, the world, the atmosphere is on point, the characters are on point, the animation's on point. So yeah, it definitely deserves my top three spot, and it's by Studio Peridot, and it's just surprising that they're able to do this level of work when they're known for like just doing the Naruto, Shippuden, and Bleach animes. So Sam, why is it so high on your list?
It's a little bit like you said because of the characters and the aesthetics. Oh my goodness, I would say even though the aesthetic, it's very much very cyberpunkish, and even though everything's dark, it doesn't feel. It feels a little bit more lighthearted, I guess, because of the characters. They're just so lively, and it's as we're following Swindler, that's the code name that they give her, the female lead throughout this show. I guess because of her, because she essentially gets roped in through a comedy of errors, and because of her reaction and everybody else's interactions with one another, it's just very interesting, and it's a good ride. It's a good ride along because she everybody thinks that she's an Akudama, and being associated with an Akudama or being called an Akudama, you have to, as you said, there's a sort of a bounty on your head for how many years you're supposed to be serving. And in the beginning of the show, she has to play the part of an Akudama, otherwise they would kill her because, they're all wanted. And it's just funny because they're put in a situation where they have to work together. They, as you said, they have an Ocean's 11 or a sort of a Charlie's Angels feel where they have to follow in the beginning, which is this talking cat. Where they have to go and they have to pull off these sort of heists, and then you start to realize the world is becoming much bigger, much more grander, and I've just had a good ride, especially like these last few episodes. You begin to notice that there may be something supernatural in the world, but because with in regards to a certain character, but with the way that he was acting up until this point, you thought it was just him just being crazy, but now as I said, there was something where it was like, holy smokes, there might be something else going along throughout this entire time, and it's just been a fun, wild ride.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Cool. That's fair. And just a spoiler to making the list for our episode. It seems like Akutama Drive is going to be our number one anime. Anyways, that was your number two. So my number two is Tower of God.
okay, so why is Tower of God so high on your list?
Uh, One, I watched both the sub and the dub three times during this year. um, so this was one of the Korean manga.
Manhwa. Hmm.
Korean manhwa. Sorry, Korean manga, but it's pronounced manhwa. Anyways, so yeah, by Crunchyroll this year, others were Nobilis and not Tower of God. Well, Tower of God's one of them, but God of
God of
High School. Yeah, and this is just three episodes. And again, this got me to actually read the webtoon, which very much seems like was the whole point of these three adaptations, to get everyone to go to webtoons to read the actual source material, and it did. And I read the 300 and something chapters of Tower of God in like 2 months. So
Is it
very
still ongoing or no?
The author recently took a break, but he was coming back for publication this month. So
Okay.
yeah, it's going. Yeah, it's ongoing right now. So yeah, the story is somewhat very simple, where Bomb is the main character, and he's essentially climbing up a tower in search of a girl. And that's basically where the story and premise kind of just lies, and everything else is world building. Again, this is very much a prologue to like a real story, and I think that's where the main criticism of the series comes, is that it just feels like all setup. And my understanding of it, or as I understand it now, is that the setup is worth it. But as
Yeah.
it as a anime, just considering itself by itself, that it's just an enjoyable ride. The characters are engaging. Bomb gets two main like comrades, very much in the same way of, maybe Hunter x Hunter, is that there's a brute and there's a um, clever, essentially uh, mysterious. Well, I don't want to give it away, but anyways, yeah, it's just a trio of good
Yeah.
friends. This tower, but it's set up in a battle royale kind of situation, competing against other teams. And but there's this magic system. There's a lot of lore building going on. There's a ranking system. There's jobs. It's a lot to for 13 episodes. There's a lot to engage with. There's a lot to get interested in. So again, if you're looking at an anime that actually succeeded in what it was trying to do this year, I think Tower of God was the best out of most of them. So
Yeah.
this was a Telecom Animations Films, and I haven't heard of them before, but their line work in Tower of God is just so graphically amazing. It just looks like they took the actual, it's very much comic book style. It's that's so a general and misnomer term, but if you were thinking about Sin City or The Spirit or anything by Frank Miller or Watchmen, it just looks like it's a comic book moving, and that's kind of what got me back into it. Not only to hear the English dub of it, but to see how the story tracks, because how in episode 13 it reveals what was actually going on the whole time. It's just so
Yeah.
masterfully done, is that you want to take a second to kind of just digest and rewatch it again. That's why I watched it a second time all the way through, and then I had to watch it the second time all the way through with the dub. So that's two times down for each of the sub and dub. So and I was like, hey, I have free time because of quarantine, so let me watch it again. So yeah, that's why it's so high on my list. Why did it make your number 5 spot, Sam?
I would say because a lot of the reasons that, like you said, it gave enough of the world. It had, the world building was great, and the characters. It was fun, as you said. It felt a lot like the close group of characters in Hunter x Hunter, where you follow these three main people in the beginning. And I would say the reason why it's probably a little bit lower on my list is because even though they do a lot of do a lot of setup, they do a lot of build up, they don't really explain the powers a whole lot, which would have helped me understand some of the scenarios, and at least with some of the games that they have to do in their obstacles for the tower. So at least, like, maybe if they had taken a little bit more time to explain what it meant to be some of the different positions, like I think it was a light bearer or a lighthouse, or like the fisherman, at least like to explain a little bit of the powers a little bit more. But as you said, it did a wonderful job in establishing a world and establishing the characters as well. It didn't feel as though the characters were forced to like each other. It felt very cohesive and natural. And I'm looking forward to the next season if there's going to be another one.
Yeah, that's very unlikely given how the reception went with Tower of God and with basically all the other Crunchyroll webtoons adaptations. But anyways, yeah. So Sam, I know you're number one because we've skipped it because it was on my list. But can you tell us why your number one is your number one and why my number one is not even on your list?
I kind of want to know what your number one is. I feel like I should know, but It,
You
it's
should.
it's no, it because I hold on. Your number one's not the number one that I thought that it would be. Now thinking about it, because it would be now I'm just confusing. So
Yeah, a little bit. So tell me why Juju Kaisen is your number one.
Jujutsu Kaisen is my number one. I would say it's a little bit because I cheated and went ahead and read the manga, and I'm just loving what the anime is doing. It's sort of true biggest Dugard, true blue adaptation. There's like so far it's been beat for beat in the way that the story is done. It's and the way that it's drawn, the characters, they're true to themselves. They feel very natural. I like the cohesion of the main trio, and even like with the story, because it's essentially these high schoolers fighting these supernatural forces. The way that they frame it for the main character and his main goal, it's different. And again, it's sort of dealing with the themes of choosing your own, choosing how you handle fate and things of that nature. And it's just been it's just been very fun, and I am excited on how they're going to animate certain things, and I love how true to form or true to the source material that it has become.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, so it's on my number six, so it's in my lower moon. So again, like I was saying before, is it's a story that does focus mainly on setting up Yuji as a character and setting up his personal growth
Yeah,
and very much a introductory way to the world. And again, it passed the 3 episode test perfectly. It's studio mappa, so you know it's gorgeous in how they handle the fight scenes. And you're even episode 11 just premiered and now is introducing a new character that you see in the opening, so you know a little bit of the direction that that's going to take, but you kind of get how this world is operating and how curses do
yeah,
manifest as cursed spirits, and all that is done like perfectly well. It's just that again, if I'm looking at what will I come back to, that this is just going to be another season of Juju Kaisen. I'm going to keep watching it the same way as I kind of keep watching Fire Force, same way as I keep reading My Hero Academia. It's something that stands out. It's just something that is, I guess standard. I guess is if I'm going to give any real hard critique about it. It's like I'm not going to
yeah.
revisit it. It's a good time, no alcohol required, essentially, and it's just beautiful to watch. But again, nothing really engages me. Like the story isn't too deep. It's very simple. Of what kind of death do you want to choose? Essentially, is the question that Yuji, the main character, asks himself. Is that I've
Yeah,
been given the opportunity to pursue a life changing opportunity. Essentially, and he's like, I'm the only one that can do this, and everything about that is wholesome, I guess, in what he's going through, and that I guess wholesome's the word of the was the word of the podcast today. But anyways, yeah,
yes,
like even in his character is that you watched the latest episode, right, Sam?
I did.
Okay, yeah. So there's even a moment where he's trying to relate to this new character that they introduced, and he's acting out like a scene from Castaway, and it's just
Yes.
hilarious.
Well done.
Yeah, and it's just like he's just like he's a great main character, and I think he's probably like above Bomb and like Tower of God or Courier or Swindler and Akudama Drive. Like Yuji is probably the best main character in this. Is like if we're going through like the Crunchyroll awards, the
Yeah,
main protagonist award, he probably gets it more than anyone else. Yuji Itadori. Yeah, so like again, everything is just above board. It's just it's lower moon for me. Yeah.
like,
All
I,
right.
I would. I would say like probably another strength to the show, or at least like why I have it so high on my list, is probably because of the strong magic, or at least how they present the rules of their magic in the world. Because I've said that multiple times, how I appreciate how stories are at least true to form to their own rules. And as the show goes on, like they present a magic system and they really do adhere to their rules, and I really do appreciate that. So I guess that's why it's so high on my list as well.
Got you. Yeah, I know you love a hard magic system. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to take a final guess of what's my number one anime of the year before I say that?
Oh,
It's
go
been
go
my
ahead.
number one for like it's literally been my number one for like the whole year. But yeah, it is Interspecies Reviewer.
I forgot about it. I'm sorry because you hadn't brought it up in a minute. Is it still going on, or did they
Oh
finish
no,
the season?
oh yeah, it finished it. I mean, it started back in the winter, so it, it came and went essentially. But yeah, 12 episodes, done by Studio Passionate. It's like passion with the e at the end. It's available
Yeah,
on Amazon Prime because for one, it got pulled from broadcasting because of, for obvious reasons. But anyways, this is a series that covers basically what are you going to be sexually attracted to in a world with mixed species of like centaurs and mermaids and harpies. And if you're living in a fantasy world, how are you going to find like other species attractive essentially? And it goes about it in a very pro sexuality and gender identity way. And it's very interesting that, again, what I said about Tower of God, about what it set out to achieve, it achieved that.
yeah,
Interspecies Reviewer did that so much at a higher level because so much of the series is just these three dudes. Again, they're reviewing, their jobs is like brothel reviewers, so they're going from brothel to brothel in this magical world and basically having sex with the uh, I forgot what you call them in the world, but basically the ladies of the house that uphold the brothel, and they're basically rating
yeah,
them, writing reviews. So they're all like basically um, critics writing about how do they value their experience and how do they find certain species attractive. Like one of the main MCs is an elf, and he's like 400 years old. So his he's most attracted to 80-year-old human women because in elf years 80 would be basically like teenager years essentially.
yeah,
So like they're putting all this context into like breaking down what do magical fantasy worlds actually operate like. And that's just so endearing for, kind of a meta commentary about the whole genre. Cause like we get so many fantasy stories, we get so many isekais just doing the generic European medieval setting and location without really saying anything about why does it matter that we're in this time period. But in Interspecies Reviewer, they take that to heart and they say, "Oh, here's our statement. This is why this is important, and this is how it would actually work." And it's so much on the border of what is hentai and what is anime that you kind of just have to stand up and applaud. That the censored version,
you're standing on the fence in a perfect manner.
right? Yeah. So it's a very thin line of what is like pornographic and what is porn, essentially. And the censored version kind of helps with that. Is that is very much not instructional, but it's really interesting that it's educational in a way of a lot of fetishes and how do people break down their sexual identity, how they break down their gender identity and orientation and all of that. And it's just so explicit in the show that, again, it's just such a refreshing thing to see that a studio like this can operate in this kind of climate. And again, just above Tower of God, above Akudama Drive, above It Invaded is just like a series that I can go back and say, oh, this is very much like I said, what anime is, but this is like kind of, I don't know, peak anime, if you want to say something attached to that. But yeah, this is why it's on my list as number one, Sam.
Like you said, I would give it kudos because, as you said, in this climate, or at least how people view that sort of thing, because essentially, like these dudes, they're going out and they're rating women, and I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't get flack about that. Like they got more flack about the explicit scenes. I think you said it was episode 4 or episode 3. Like they got more flack about having an explicit scene rather than the idea behind the genre, where you essentially have these men going around essentially like objectifying these female creatures or these women. I'm actually kind of surprised that there wasn't any backlash about that. But the fact that it was able to garner as much popularity as it did, despite its main, despite its main premise, you still got to give kudos to them for that.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and of course, it's all of its newsworthiness really came from how the source material of the manga that it was based off on wasn't explicit at all. So it
Yeah.
wasn't even a very much how the show does censored and uncensored version. That is just completely by the studio's imagination that they went to delve into that topic. And again, a thing that's applaud worthy, or something they're praiseworthy for, is that they went forward to show this on Tokyo MX, and Tokyo MX again was like, "Hey, we'll show this." And then that third episode ruling test came out, and they were like, "Yeah, we're definitely pulling this from our broadcasting." So Amazon Prime again, even saying about them to make sure that this is out in the world, making sure people can find this through Amazon Prime. I'm going to keep saying Amazon Prime because good for them. Good for them for saying that we'll show it when no one else is showing it, because it's not on Crunchyroll, it's not on Hulu, it's not on Funimation, it's nowhere except for on Amazon Prime. So Sam, can you please go through your list one more time before we make our show's combined list?
Yes. So my list from the bottom up, it's Balance Unlimited, Appare-Ranman, Brand New Animal, The Great Pretender, Gleipnir, Tower of God, It Invaded, Decadence, Akudama Drive, and Jujutsu Kaisen.
All right, cool. Yeah. So, bottom up for me, it is Millionaire, Detective, Toilet Bound, Hanako-kun, Great Pretender, Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, Juju Kaisen, Decadence, It Invaded, or yeah, It Invaded, Akudama Drive, Tower of God, and Interspecies Reviewer. So now we're going to combine the list, which is going to be incredibly hard. So we have our individual lists, of course, and now we're going to make our shows list by combining them about what shares either the top billing, again, going by the top moon, bottom moons, making sure that our top moons all get represented equally. But because of you don't have my number one and your number one is so far down on my list, do you want to make Akudama Drive number one, or do you want to battle it out for?
I think because we have two shows on our list, right, that are in the same spot. I know Balance Unlimited share the number 10. Isn't there another one on our list that share the same spot, or no?
It invaded.
Okay.
It
I
invaded.
feel like those two shows, they should stay where they're at.
Mm.
Um, and as far as number one, let's see, because what, you were saying you were going to try to put Akudama Drive as number one.
Well, that's your number two, and that's my number
Yeah.
three. So that's the ones that we share with the highest ranking.
Hmm. Let's see, because I would like to, but because the season's not done yet, and like I said, I'm just a little bit hesitant. I'm sure that the show is going to end great, but still,
Well,
I've been burned before by animes and their last episodes.
by that logic, we can't put Juju Kaisen as number one either.
But it's following it's following the manga very very closely. Oh man. Oh no, you're right. So I'm okay with putting Akudama as for number one. So
All right.
then number two would be. Hold on, I have to write this out so I can see this.
Right. That's why we say the both of our lists at this, at the end. So I was
Yeah,
thinking that we could put. Wow, I don't want to put In Invaded too far up from number four, but that would be our next in common one. But I don't. I mean, my interspecies reviewers isn't even on your list, so I
yeah.
understand that needs to be higher on the list. So, but Juju Kaisen is so. it's so influenced by your reading of the manga that I don't know if that's a fair way to judge it either as an anime that you know how the story is progressing. So even though it has fidelity of being loyal to the source material, that
Hmm.
really doesn't impact how I feel about the anime. But if you feel that strongly about it, we can put it as number 2, and then we can put Interspecies Reviewer as number 3.
Well, no, and excuse me. As you said, like Jujutsu, I do have a skewed view of it because I have read the manga, so we can put Jujutsu because you have Jujutsu in the lower moon, correct? It's not even
Yeah,
in the top five.
it's my number 6.
Okay, we can. We can have Jujutsu lower down on the list. Then I would say we could have Interspecies as number 2. And where was Decadence on yours? Because Decadence.
Deca-dence is number 5 for me, and that was your number 3. So
Okay. Because I think that could be good. It's like Akudama and then Interspecies.
mhm.
Let's see. Interspecies number 3.
I mean,
Because it's gonna
Decadence
be
is
more.
Decadence is your number 3. Decadence
Yeah.
is my 5.
I'm trying to remember. What was your number 3?
My number 3 is Akudama Drive, so we have that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's already there. Let me see. Because, yeah, if you're okay with that, we can have Decadence as number 3 and have it as number 4.
Okay. And number 5 as what's yours? Juju Kaisen.
My number 5 is Tower of God. Um, because you have Jujutsu's number 6 for you.
Yeah.
And who's your number 5 again?
Tower of God.
Tower of God?
Oh no, Tower of God's my number 2. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, Decadence is my
Oh.
number 5.
No, so okay. So Decadence, Id, and Tower of God. No, well, are you okay with Tower of God being so low on the list?
We should probably switch out Tower of God with Decadence for number 3 and number 5 then.
Okay, yeah. So we'll have Tower of God under Interspecies,
Hmm.
uh, God, Id, and then Decadence,
All right, cool.
and then
Perfect.
number 6. We'll have Jujutsu as number 6 because
All right.
he's number 6 on your list, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool.
So, all right.
All right, cool. So I think that covers our top 5 for you. Your top 5 is all on the list now. And yeah, my top 5's on the list now. So yeah, cool. So those are all our similarities except for Great Pretender. Yeah, so I guess Great Pretender would be number 7.
Yeah,
All
Great
right.
Pretender would be number 7.
All right, cool. Now we get to battle out for the lower moons.
All right.
What do you think is your next highest? Your next highest is Gleipnir.
Yeah, that one's number 6 for me, but right now we're looking for number 8. So, what was what was in your lower moon?
No, we're in the same position. So all of our top moons are. So my next highest is number
Yeah,
8, and
yeah.
that's my number 7. So that would be Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken.
Oh yeah. I hadn't finished watching it, and you've well, I trust you. I know you can vouch for it.
Hmm. And I didn't finish Gleipnir either. So
uh,
on the
I would
basis that it's on
yeah.
the New York Times list, do you want to put it on our list as well?
No, yeah. I would definitely say yeah. Eizouken definitely gets number 8 then.
Okay, cool. So do you want to put Gleipnir as number 8? I mean number 9 then?
No, because it seems like so far our list has been kind of wholesome. Kind of. Let's see. I'm trying to
I
think
mean,
because
right now, Millionaire Detective is going to get pushed off.
why is Millionaire Detective going to get pushed off?
Oh, because I mean,
We're not keeping it at number 10.
you still have your 6, your 8, and number 9 left. So
No,
you still
because
have
I thought
higher.
I thought we were trying to make a whole new list. I thought we were going to still keep a billionaire detective as number 10
Oh, I was
because
just saying whatever
yeah.
has the highest priority goes on the list.
Oh, because let's see. I would say like I would want brand new animal to get on our list because so I would say brand new animal should be number 9.
All right, cool. I agree because it's Studio Trigger and it did pass the 3 episode test for me. It's just that I never went
Mhm.
back to pick it up, so it's definitely a fair placing for it.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm fine with our number 10 being Billionaire Detective because
Okay.
we both agreed on it.
Oh, okay. So you don't want Appare-Ranman or Gleipnir there?
Uh, they could be our honorary mentions. I'm not going to fight for them too hard. Like, if I'm going to fight for either of them, it would be for Gleipnir, just
Mhm.
because the story and like its continuation. Appare-Ranman, it's a good watch. If people can watch it, it'll be great. But if they don't watch it, I don't think they're missing out on too much. But it's pretty fun, so I'm
All right.
not too worried about that. Not getting on the list.
All right. So Millionaire Detective keeps it on as number 10.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
okay with that.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. All right. So to go through the list, going to take turns. Do you have it written down for yourself so you can
Yes,
read
yes,
them all?
yes.
All right,
I do.
cool. So let's see. So you'll start with number 10, Sam. So the top or favorite top 10 bestest favorites bestest
The
anime.
favorites.
Yeah, favorites. Yeah, bestest. Yeah, our best anime of or favorite anime of 2020 is our number 10 spot.
Billionaire Detective.
At number 9, Brand New Animal.
At number 8, Keep Your Hands Off of Eizouken.
At number 7, Great Pretender.
At number 6, Jujutsu Kaisen.
At number 5, Deca-dence.
At number 4, we have It Invaded.
And number 3, Tower of God.
At number 2, we have Interspecies Reviewers.
And number 1, our favorite bestest anime of 2020 is Akudama Drive.
Woo!
Yeah, so good year, right? I think it's our
That's
list
been a
like
great year.
we had like 7 in common, so it's pretty good. We have basically similar tests, and where we diverge is basically we didn't finish it each other's, or you didn't even try Interspecies Reviewer, even though I said it was my favorite anime right out the gate of the year. But that's okay, Sam. Maybe you'll go back and watch it now that it's so high up on our combined list.
Yes, I'm going to have to do that now. And I will say I really do. I think our list came out good. This is a good list for this year.
All right, cool. So yes, this is the first of a part 2 episode where next episode we'll talk about the best anime from 2010. So that's what we do with this podcast. We talk about the present, then we talk about the past. So this was for 2020. Now we'll go back a decade and talk about best anime of 2010. So Sam, wrapped up, finished with this episode. You have anything to say?
Yes, I do think that this is actually relevant now concerning our list. And Jay, I think the world needs to know whether or not you're going to be a boring man or a man of sophistication. And we need to know what kind of woman is your type.
Oh, my type of woman is